talk about fears. Let's talk about love. Yeah, I got fears, but I ain't got no love. Yes, I got fears. Fear of plane crash. Fear of car crash. Oh, fear of sex. Fear of alcohol.
So it's Monday. So Monday means another round of weekly videos. And remember our new format now. So Monday we're going to get Solved or Unsolved, which is a brief synopsis of the case and whether I think it's solved or unsolved and why, which is important. And Tuesday we do Ken's Key Clue. You know, what was it during this case that I found that led me to determine what I determined. And then Wednesday we do the deep dive into it, the longer video. Thursday the live chat where you guys get to pepper me with your questions. And then Friday I do another Q&A session based off the comments that you leave. It's a good format. Worked good last week with the DeFeo murders. So this time, you know, we're going from such a high-profile case, the DeFeos and the Amityville Horror, to one that is not known. I mean, not known, not just nationally. It isn't even known in the city that it was committed in. And we're talking about the missing person, Dawn Marie Miller, which eventually was determined to be a homicide. Dawn Marie Miller. This case holds a little bit true to my heart because it was my first official cold case that I ever worked on. Me as an amateur detective, much like some of you guys who unfortunately or fortunately, depends on how you look at it, didn't get into the police business, but still have the passion to do these types of cases. That was me. Okay, that was me before I, became a police officer and then a cold case detective. So the first actual cold case I think I really dove into was Carrie Culberson. And she was a missing person out of Ohio. But this, Dawn Marie Miller, was my first actual cold case that I worked. And I did it as a police officer. I was on the narcotics unit. I say unit, I think at the time it was only me and another guy because everybody else got suspended. But I was searching the internet for missing persons out of Williamsport. I think it was Thanksgiving. I had just been divorced. I was probably hungover or drinking at the time. And I don't know. It's in my blood, I guess. Fate would have it. I typed in missing persons Williamsport. And lo and behold, Dawn Marie Miller popped up. And, I had worked at the police department there for, I don't know, probably 5 years at that point. And I was like, we got a missing person and I don't know about it? Usually there's flyers hanging around or something. There was nothing. So I was intrigued. I went to my captain the next day. I said, hey, can I work on this case? We have a missing person. He's like, we have a missing person. And he had been there for 20 years. He didn't know. And I told him about it. And he said, well, no, you're a drug cop. And that started the ball rolling of me becoming very jaded at the police department because I didn't feel the police should be broken down into little segments. Patrol cop, dope cop, evidence property cop. We're all cops, and we're there to do a freaking job. And that's how I looked at it. So, but after some convincing, I told him that I would do it on my own time. He said, fine, have at it. Okay, so long story short, she went missing on October 24th, 1992, the same year that I graduated and then enlisted in the Marine Corps. And that's the reason I wanted to do that this week, because Sunday will be the 29th anniversary of her disappearance. So, who is Dawn Marie Miller? Dawn Marie Miller lived in Williamsport, Pennsylvania with her mom and her siblings. And she, at the time, I believe she was 22 years old. 5'6", 105 pounds. Her birth date was June 9th, 1970. And they were a lower class income family. Mom worked hard, though, to try to support, and her mom is an amazing person. And Dawn had a little bit of some learning disabilities, maybe. You know, she wasn't too bad, but maybe she could be somewhat slow at times. She didn't always make the best choices, and her behavior changed up to her disappearance. She was not listening to her mother too much, and she was, you know, of age. She didn't have to, but she still lived at home. So she got a new boyfriend. His name was Greg Emmel. Greg Emmel lived in Bellefonte, Pennsylvania. Bellefonte is approximately 30 minutes away from Williamsport, maybe 40 minutes, depending. And she was living at home in Williamsport, but she would go to Bellefonte to visit him. During this romance with him, she disappeared. Mom started to get worried. Hey, where's she at? Nobody knows. Nobody's seen her. And her brother Jeff Emmel ended up questioning, seeing Greg Emmel and questioning. And they said, oh, we dropped her off in Williamsport on this date, and so on and so forth. And lo and behold, she never showed up. Well, Jeff noticed something as he was talking to Greg and his nephew Joe. And that was a scratch on Greg's face. And he had seen also a scratch on Joe. Dawn's mom tried to report this and report her daughter missing to the Williamsport police. The Williamsport police said, hey, where did she go missing at? And they said, well, she was last known to be in Bellefonte. Well, you have to report it to Bellefonte. She went to Bellefonte. The mother, Bellefonte police said, where's your daughter from? They said, Williamsport. Well, you need to report her missing in Williamsport. She went back and forth. Nobody would take the freaking police report. Man, that irritates me. Still, to this day. Eventually, she had to go to the newspaper. And then, after she went to the newspaper and they ran an article on it, Williamsport agreed to take the case. Where do you start? You start with the boyfriend, and that's what they did. They interviewed him. Boyfriend said, we dropped her off down in Williamsport. She wanted to go home. They said, well, what about the scratch on your face? He said, well, after we dropped her off, me and my nephew were coming back. We got a flat tire, and the tire rolled down over the embankment. I went to get it. I got scratched by a jagger. Much like you, I'm in dismay that they believed that story. Yet, they did some follow-up, not nearly enough, on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being superior work, 1 being the worst work ever seen. I would give that maybe a 2.5 is where they were at on this investigation. That's it. Case went cold. Case went cold until, 2007, 2008, when I started searching and found that we had a missing person, and I went and asked for the case. I spent a good amount of time on this case, a good amount of time really diving into it and figuring out what happened. And at the end of it all, I did figure out what happened. I got a confession from somebody. I also got another guy who hung himself after I interviewed him. I got a dear friend out of this. I had the highest of highs and the lowest of lows during my investigation into this case. It is something that it truly changed my life and put me on the path that I currently am on. And it's because of Dawn Marie Miller. So you ask, why is this solved or unsolved? It's a tricky question with this one. And the reason is, what is solved? To some people, I mean, it's a very arbitrary word, right? Solved to some people is knowing who did it and what happened. Solved to some people means an arrest. The police arrested him. To other people, solved means a conviction. Brought to court, convicted, sentenced. All three could be viewed as the definition of solved. For me personally, I tend to believe solved is knowing who did it, why they did it, and what happened. Because I think sometimes if you ask the loved ones, that's what they want to know. They'll take that over anything else. Sometimes. Not always. After I interviewed the boyfriend, and he subsequently chose to pull a ratchet strap from his vehicle and park in the middle of the woods and hang himself, because I told him I was coming. There was no more bullshitting around. I knew what happened. I knew what took place. You're not pulling the wool over my eyes. I think about the case, and I think about the ripple effects it had in my life, and how someone I never met had such a profound impact on the trajectory of my career. You know, I say sometimes that I think everybody has a gift. You just don't know sometimes what that gift is. Dawn Marie Miller had a gift. And that gift was given to me. It's because of her, a person I've never met, never knew, that I am where I am today. Without her, I don't know if that would have been possible. It's amazing to think about. So, solved or unsolved? This is one that I don't think I'm going to make a determination on. And I'm going to let you guys decide whether it's solved or unsolved once you listen to the entire story. And I'll tell you why, at the end, why I'm hesitant to say whether it's solved or unsolved. Sure, I got all the accolades, you know, that come with, you know, technically. Again, it depends on your word of solved, but, you know, I got a Police Officer of the Year award for this investigation, a lot of newspaper articles. But it doesn't change the fact that you have a missing person and nobody cared about her other than her family. Nobody would take the police report. She's of age. We have to change that mentality in all missing person cases. I guess it's like a lot of other vocations, right? You have people that excel and are passionate about their job and will do whatever it takes. And then you have others who are just collecting a paycheck. This case is a prime example of that. I get very disgusted and I get very upset when I think about this case. As I sit here and look at her picture, I think about the horrible death that she endured, and how I go back to how someone I never met and how it affected my life, my career. Sometimes you'll hear these professional investigators say, you can't take these cases personally. Well, I do. And I did this one, and I still do. When I work a case, I put my entire being into that case. And I did on this case. And you're going to hear it all, especially when we get to the deep dive. And I already did a video about this a long time ago, maybe a year or two ago. So maybe you can look in that and, get familiarized. But I'm going to go into it again because she deserves it. Her family deserves it. I don't care if she was of lower socioeconomic standings. I don't care what her skin color is. I don't care about any of that. All I care about is getting justice for Dawn. And I do that for Dawn, and I do it for her family. I don't care if people think that, anybody. Cases where people live in trailer parks. People, that are from the dredges of society. It doesn't matter. There's people that love them. Okay? And it's our job, or it was my job when I was a police officer, to protect and serve them. Those aren't just words to me. They meant something. So Dawn Marie Miller, missing, 10/24/1992. Last seen with her boyfriend Greg Emmel and his nephew Joe Emmel. Missing, Bellefonte, Pennsylvania. 22 years old. She was 5'6", 105 pounds. Had a slight speech impediment. White female, dark brown hair. Not a complicated case. It got complicated because of the people involved and the passage of time. And this case will show you how the justice system is broken, without a doubt. It'll show you how innocent people can walk free. It'll show you how guilty people can walk free and how innocent people can end up covered in dirt. That's what it'll show you. I'm going to get into the whole deep dive breakdown again on Wednesday. Tomorrow, you're going to hear my key clue. What I saw when I got the 2.5-page police report into this investigation. Yes, it was 2.5 pages. But you got to work from there. You can't blame back. I'll give you a perfect example. I'm working a cold case of a mother and daughter murdered. Okay, I retire. I work it for 10 years. I don't blame anybody. Okay, so what? That they took the victim's clothing and they fumed it with gold dust and it deteriorated and it ruined any chance for touch DNA. Did I sit there 10 years later and say they messed up the case because they did that? No. They were trying the best that they could at that time to solve the case. They didn't know about touch DNA. So when I leave and the new detectives take over the case, what do they say? Well, Maines, he screwed up the case. He didn't do this. He didn't do that. Really? You want to blame me? You know why they do that? It's because they can't solve it. And it's ego. You need to check that ego. You know, I didn't blame anybody because I couldn't solve the case. I did the best that I could at that time. And it was validated when the victim's sister called me and says, you know, you're the only one out of all the investigators through the past 30 years that didn't blame anybody. You didn't blame any of the past investigators. You know what that is? That's integrity. Okay? That's keeping your ego in check. It's not always blaming because you can't solve it. That's what cowards do. Anyhow, I lost my train of thought. I do that occasionally because I get angry. We gotta make medicine for that. But I don't take medicine. I'm more of a herb type guy. Not weed. Not that there's anything wrong. You do what everybody does, they do on their own. I'm not into that. I'm into vitamins and supplements. That is what I meant by that. So, Dawn Marie Miller. Oh, and I have this here. I'll give you a quick review of that. See if you can see that. That was from this case. So, for what it's worth, we're going to get into Dawn Marie Miller, solved or unsolved. I'm going to wait and let you guys make that determination. And I'll see you Tuesday on Ken's Key Clue. Then Wednesday, deep dive. And Thursday, we'll do a live chat and talk about the unfortunate disappearance and ultimate homicide of victim Dawn Marie Miller. So until next time, Maines out.